What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Insane Disappearances. Now, regardless of how exciting this channel may be, it's also a little creepy, mysterious, and outright mind-blowing when you listen to the stories that I read about with these cases of people who vanish without a trace in national parks, especially when it comes to young children. That is probably the creepiest part of all, when children just seem to go off the beaten path and then they're never seen again. And no matter how many times they search, they can't find nothing. Maybe if they get lucky, they'll find some remains like 4 or 5 years later in an area that was supposed to have been inaccessible to anyone, including a child. But somehow they end up there. So, and the same thing goes for any grown-up, who ends up hiking or jogging, on a trail in the national forest or something like that. But today's story is going to be about a young scout named Jared Negret. Now, he was 12 years old when he disappeared. Now, let's see. He was a missing scout who took a picture of himself. His camera is found. Most of the photos were landscape scenes, but the final shot of the roll of the film was of his eyes and nose. And given the fact that the flash went off, obviously it was sometime during the evening. I think they may have mentioned exactly what time it was, but they did. I don't know if they determined exactly what time it was when he took the photo. They just knew it was dark enough for the flash to go off. But these were, like I said, both close-up shots of his nose and eyes. Now, the 12-year-old Boy Scout lost in the wilderness of the San Bernardino Mountains for the past 9 days may have taken pictures of himself after he became separated from his troop, family members said Sunday. Now, 12 snapshots were developed from a camera found by searchers combining 11,500 foot Mount San Gorgonio on Saturday for Jared Negret, who has been missing since July 19. Most of the photos were landscape scenes, apparently taken before the boy became lost, but the final picture of the roll of the film was a photograph of the scout's eyes and nose, taken with the aid of the camera's flash attachment. Possibly at night after the youth disappeared. Family members said it appeared Jared pointed his camera at his face and snapped the picture. Now, evidently, the flash went off, so we determined it was rather late in the evening, said Harvey Beach, one of Jared's uncles. Okay, now, Beach and another uncle by the name of Leo Cortez said they believed the boy lost the camera while sliding down a portion of the mountainside within days of his disappearance. He was on his bottom sliding down on a lower area in water. Beach said the camera was found in the same general area where searchers discovered beef jerky and candy wrappers believed to have been dropped by the scout. Jared always carried some goodies with him and also had a 2-quart water canteen, said Cortez, who has accompanied the boy on short hikes in the past. The film, food, wrappers, and earlier tracks helped rescuers narrow the search area to the South Fork of Whitewater River. That's a pretty heavy, active river. North of Mount San Gorgonio from the entire brush and boulder-covered mountain face. And because of the discoveries, about 100 volunteers will continue the search today, full force, said San Bernardino County Sheriff's Deputy Bill Lanou. There are areas of the South Fork where someone could survive an extended period of time, said Lanu, but as time passes, the chances of survival are a big issue. Now, while nearly a dozen uncles and cousins gathered near the search area, the youth's parents remained at their home in Elmont. The family has been having a terrible time since the 5'2", 150-pound boy disappeared while on a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints scout outing. Let's see. Now, in addition to searchers on foot and on horseback, helicopters have been used to scan the brutal terrain. Infrared monitors were installed at a number of high points Saturday night in hopes of spotting the boy in the dark. Only deer and other animals were detected by the monitors. Well, yeah, that's a pretty strange one right there, because he went off the beaten path and went off on his own doing whatever, and he got lost, took some pictures, and after the pictures were taken, that's when he basically just vanished without a trace. And then they only found certain things, and that was the film, that way he took pictures of his face, or certain parts of his face, that is. Other than that, he hasn't been found since, and like it said in the report, he disappeared. He disappeared on July 19th. So, and let's see, did it say what year? I guess in 1991. Yeah, because this is when the story was put out on on the media. July of 1991. So he disappeared July 19th of 1991. Yes, very strange with all these children disappearing, and families having to deal with, the idea of not being able to hug their child or kiss them or hold them and keep them safe. That's why it always pays to not let them wander off on their own. If they're with a group, they need to stay with that group and not, just fall behind or get ahead of anybody. Or if you see something, just keep moving. Don't even try to let that distract you, because you're supposed to be with that group. But yeah, but that's how children are. They're very explorative. Their minds are always wandering, wanting to know what this is, wanting to know what that is. Just experimenting, or just like exploring. Things. Especially things that interest them. Okay. Oh, excuse me. This story is about another young boy named Kenny Miller, and his body was found after he had vanished on a hike. When he was found by hikers as well. Now this happened in Marcoleeville, California. The body of Kenny Miller, the developmentally disabled boy who disappeared last month while hiking in the Sierra, was found Saturday on the Carson Pass area west of here, which is apparently Marcoleeville, California. Let's see. On our Alpine County Deputy Sheriff Steve McEwen said the discovery was made by hikers on a ridge near Stevens Peak, just east of the Mias Meadows area where Kenny 12 of Oakhurst was last seen. The discovery of the body was reported about 12:40 p.m. and confirmed by a group of deputies on horseback early Saturday evening. The youth's body was found in rocky terrain at about 9,800 feet in elevation. You see, now the Mias Meadows is about 8,400 feet in elevation. Now McEwen was unable to estimate how far the youth walked to get to the ridge. McGuinn said that a California Highway Patrol helicopter crew tried to retrieve the body earlier in the day, but the craft was unable to land due to high winds. And that seems to always happen when it comes to them searching for someone. There's always a weather mishap whenever they are trying to search for someone, especially with a helicopter. And I've heard of many helicopters actually crashing because of the crazy weather. This also happened with the Jared Negret case when people was out there, looking for him. I think when Alan Atadero did an interview on YouTube, he said that there was a helicopter crash in the pursuit of looking for his son. But that part wasn't mentioned. Well, at least I don't think. I think it might have been mentioned by David Paulides, on Coast to Coast AM, and probably in the book too. I think it was, but because I did read that story for my channel. But anyway, the search for the boy was called off after Wednesday after 9 days. As many as 250 people a day took part in the effort. Miller, who had the mental abilities of a 4-year-old, became separated from his parents June 23rd while on a day hike on Pacific Crest Trail. He was last seen throwing pebbles into a small stream in the upper Truckee River Canyon, about 3 miles north of Carson Pass. Deputies said the parents walked a short distance to look at a cabin at the youth. Cabin and no. Okay, I'm sorry. To look at a cabin, and the youth was gone when they returned a few minutes later. The case baffled authorities, and their search was hampered by rocky brush, covered terrain, and unseasonable weather. Now, like I said before, that seems to happen a lot when it comes to people disappearing in these national parks, especially with children. Weather always seems to go bad like minutes after they disappear, and it's almost like it's being done on purpose so that whatever they may find gets washed away by all the rain or the snow, by it being covered up. Because they say like a couple of feet of snow can fall within hours, in areas like that, especially in the mountains. But in his case, he just up and vanished. He just went off on his own, and he just disappeared. And he was just doing something real normal, and that was just throwing pebbles into a little stream. But in the midst of all that, he just vanished. And nobody knows how it happened, why it happened. Even if there was a whodunit, nobody knows who, nobody knows how they did it, nobody knows why. Nobody knows where either, So this story was put out around July of 2005 in 1992, from the Associated Press. So, but yeah, it's crazy, man. It's real crazy with these children that's disappearing, without a trace. I feel for the parents, in that aspect, because like I said in my past videos, I have a child as well. I have a daughter. She's 15, but at the same time, I worry about it as well. And I told her mom that if ever at any time a field trip comes up and they say they're going to a national park, she's not going. Or if she does go, I'll have to be present. But with the kind of job that I have, it would be kind of it wouldn't be conducive to my my work schedule. So I would actually have to take some time off. I'm not saying that's not possible, but it just depends on how much leave I may have in order to go with her on that, to that park. But she would definitely stay near me at all times. She would never leave to go anywhere without me being present, even if she was going with a group of people to a certain spot. But that, like I said, would never happen. So, like I said, if you have children who basically are, geared up to do what you do as parents, as far as hiking and camping and all that stuff at a very young age, do not take your eyes off your child. even for a second, because they can always wander off when you're not looking. They have such a broad mind for exploring. They can easily get lost. And then when they get lost, that's like the perfect time for them to be taken by whatever means. If they seem to disappear without a trace, that means something took them. The question is what. And if you're lucky, you'll find their remains in an area that doesn't make any sense as far as how he even got there in the first place. There's this one story about a young boy who was found, or a young man rather. He was in an area that was very brushy, and I think he was like on a little peak, and he was like in between all this brush, and he just they were trying to figure out how he got there in the first place. It was just they said the cops couldn't even get through there. If they did, it was very hard for them to even try to get through there, because there was so much brush and branches and thorns, so they had to really do a lot of stepping over stuff just to get down in there, and it was very hard for them to do. So they always seem to be found in these weird places. Some people are found in a box canyon. Some people found in the bottom of a cliff for some reason, and they fell to their death after falling over the cliff. But some people are found hundreds of feet away from the cliff floor. So that means it was almost as if they were thrown, or they leaped over. And I don't know if they had enough leg power to leap that far. And now if the wind carried them as they were going over the cliff, that's one thing. But I doubt they would get that far. But in cases like this where they just vanish without a trace, you can't help but try to come up with the craziest theory possible of how he could have disappeared. People would start saying it was a predator that was lurking about. It was a kidnapper, a pedophile, a mass murderer that makes his way through the parks, killing people. But when the scenarios come up too similar every single time, you kind of rule out all of that, because I haven't heard of a person who would do. They talk about this in the movies where they have a knack for committing a crime a certain way. It's like that calling card, But this is one big calling card for it to be happening for hundreds of years. How people just seem to vanish without a trace, and people being found in wet, muddy areas, but the body is bone dry, and so are the socks if they don't have their shoes on. And that seems kind of far-fetched, because if you're in a muddy area and if you were walking in that area, your socks would be filled with nothing but mud, and your shoes would be dirty too, but the shoes are always missing. Why would a person take the shoes? Shoes last for years in the elements, because of that pure, strong leather. It doesn't, deteriorate. So why they would take the shoes, I never know. And one person did say, I think it was one of the people on David Paulides' team, and they said it's for one thing, he said that it would be very hard for that person to get away by them taking their shoes. They would have to walk over pointy rocks and a lot of dips and just a lot of stuff that would probably damage your feet or probably cut into it. You probably get poked by a twig on the ground, which will press into the bottom of your foot, and that still hurts regardless of the fact. Now there are some people out there, they got that real thick meat on the bottom of their foot, so they can actually walk across certain terrain. Because like my brother, he's got thick feet, and he said that when he walks across rocks, it feels like he's walking on grass because his feet are just that thick. Mine aren't. Mine are pretty thin. So when I'm walking across something like that, I feel like I'm being stabbed by a bunch of needles. So, But yeah, in cases like that, it's just weird. There's nothing else for me to say except for the fact that I got a ton of theories on what could have made that boy disappear, without a trace. Because if you leave to go somewhere even for a few minutes and you come back and they're gone and they're nowhere to be found anywhere near the area where they were, it makes you wonder, how is it that could have happened so fast? It's just like this one story about a little boy who was berry picking with his father. He was let's just say the little boy was here and the father was here. He was maybe a few inches ahead of him or a couple of feet. And then he kind of got his mind on what he was doing, but he knew where his son was. But then when it clicked in his mind, he turned back and his son was gone.
You know, he took his mind off his son for just a second, and then when he looked back, he just vanished, and he was never found. So the biggest question is, how do they disappear? It's almost like you wish that you could have turned your head at the moment when they disappeared, so that you could see exactly how it happened or what took your son. Did he just like vanished, you know, into thin air, literally, you know, like just fade away? Did something from a dimensional portal grab him from the other side of this portal and pull him in? Did he cease to exist because of the grandfather theory? I don't know. You know, it could be anything. You know, so I figured if someone went back in time to kill their grandfather, that boy would never exist. But the father would be dead too, because they would kill the grandfather first. And then, so by him killing the grandfather, that means the father of the boy would disappear, and then so would the boy. So the father was still here. So it can't be that. It can't be the grandfather theory, you know. But the boy did disappear, you know. That I truly believe. You know, people would try to say stuff like, you know, it was a pedophile, it was a serial killer that's in the parks. Yeah, but serial killers leave evidence no matter what's going on, and they're gonna do what they got to do quick and then leave so they won't get caught, especially in an area like that where there's campers all over the place. But if you're in a remote area that's secluded, then yeah, you can do what you got to do. But most serial killers do not. When they kill, they leave the body, or they'll put it somewhere and then they'll find it later. But this boy just vanished. There's no trace of him whatsoever. Okay, so if you know, now if they have an ability to make the body disappear after they kill it, that's one thing. But they don't. They do what they got to do and they get out of there, and they'll be found later on if they leave behind any kind of evidence. No matter what it is, it could be a hair sample that fell from his scalp. It could be a piece of his clothing that got caught on a twig or a branch or something, or his DNA was probably on a tree. Like, say, let's just say he had to take a piss, you know, or if let's just say there was a sign, you know, attached to a tree, you know, like a warning sign or a hunting sign or something like that. He might have been trying to hold himself up and touch the sign. His fingerprints would have been on that. Especially if his hands were dirty, then it would be easier to spot. But like I said, none of these things are a fact in any of these cases when it comes to people disappearing. So, like I always say, it's anybody's guess, right? Yeah, but that's all the time I got on this story. I got another one that I want to do. This one is about another young boy, but I'll save that for another day. You know, because you know it's my day off and I want to get a chance to rest. You know, I got somewhere I got to be later on in the evening, so I am going to end this here with my final thoughts. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below, or you can email me. Okay, I have a couple of people that already emailed me a couple of questions about, you know, paranormal experiences and UFO experiences. But so if you have any like theories you want to toss around, or any speculation questions about what I feel may happen to all these people, feel free to hit me up in the comment section, or like I said, send me my email. My email address is in the comment section below, and so you'll be able to, you know, contact me at any time. But other than that, that's pretty much all I got today, and I will be returning with more. You have not to worry. So I will see you guys again soon. All right. Aloha, mahalo, and ahuyo. Have a good day, guys.